My guest today says music is the only universal language. I've been a fan of his. I'm watching him. I have hair envy.
I didn't see that one coming.
And I'm just so excited because he's been putting out music, but his 10th album, Elijah, has a lot. And Elijah Blake is about to be on my obsession list that I've been building this year. And I'm
Thank you.
so excited for him to be on the show today. Welcome to the show, Elijah Blake. How
Thank
are
you for
you?
having. I'm good, beautiful. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm so excited that you are on the show. And I think when I recently met you, I had to tell you about one of the songs that you wrote. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, you're one of those artists that you have to play it back. Like, what did he say?
Yeah.
Um, I want to get deeper into Elijah Blake.
Thank you.
But when I talk about you are a songwriter, you are a lyricist.
Thank you.
Starting from your beginnings, how did you get into just being a songwriter and so vividly painting pictures?
I didn't know I had a gift for storytelling, per se in music,
Uh-huh.
but I've always just naturally had an infatuation with poetry. Like I was probably like the only kid in first grade that paid attention when the Shakespeare, when they were running back like the Shakespeare movies and Romeo and Juliet. I was just always super inquisitive of like, why did they have to die? Why didn't this happen? And you know what I
Right.
mean? Capulets. And I just was always intrigued by stanzas and rhyme schemes and always those type of things. So now in hindsight, it makes sense. It's like, okay, yeah, God was already like setting the stage. And being raised in a single mother household, single parent household, I was really motivated to help her out financially. And again, when you're like 9 years old, 10 years old, you can't really get a real job. But poetry contests were like a thing in South Florida for a while in Palm Beach. So I would enter in poetry contests and they didn't have an age limit. So I'm like, if I just kept getting good with that, putting my name in the hat, I would win the hat. So basically everybody would put $20 in, $30 in, and the winner of the poetry contest would take the money home. To the point where I got so good, really motivated to just help out the household that I
Uh-huh.
was bringing money in and giving it to my mom to help with rent. And she thought I was selling drugs. Like she legitimately one day was like, "Where are you getting this money from?" And
Right.
so her and my grandmother was like, my grandmother, she's a huge conspiracy theorist. She's like, he's selling drugs. I promise you, he's selling drugs. So they followed me because these poetry contests would happen at night in the evenings, and they followed me, and it was a poetry contest. And when I finished my poem, I saw my mother stand up in tears, and it was actually a poem about her. So that was, and once she saw that, she completely invested into like Harry Potter books and just things of literature I just was naturally drawn to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you are this poet from Florida,
Yeah.
Florida.
Florida.
Um, how did music intertwine in your life?
Music for me was always a constant. The first song I remember hearing and processing was always love. I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. And just the way it rang in my ears and sonically how it made me feel before I even knew what emotions were. Um, I just naturally gravitated towards her. Mariah Carey. I think I I realized Mariah as a storyteller before I actually understood vocally what she was really doing. I just loved how she told stories on Always Be My Baby and just the way she would sneak certain things in was just amazing to me. So yeah, I just naturally gravitated towards, nowadays, it's cool now to be a singer songwriter, but when I first got
Mhm.
signed, they almost made you feel like you had to pick, are you a songwriter or are you an artist? And as I did my research within myself, I'm like, I've always just naturally gravitated towards the artist that was a storyteller. Stevie Wonder, Prince, Joni Mitchell, Mariah Carey, Lauryn Hill, all authors of their own instrument, if that makes any sense.
Let's talk about you being a songwriter because you have been a part of a lot of people's playlists as a
Thank
songwriter. One of my favorite songs, of course, is Usher,
you.
Climax,
Yeah.
OMG. Let's talk about that song and how you had the opportunity to just be a part of that project with Usher.
Yeah, it was amazing. Going into it, I wanted to be the guy to give Usher his latest dance hit. I wanted to do Uptempo, I'm not gonna lie to you. I did not think I was gonna come out with this, what they call it, a baby making music. I don't think it's a baby making song, but and it's actually the saddest song of all time. But when people were hearing it, it's like, oh, that's a baby maker. I was like, y'all are just hearing the tempo and thinking that it's a sex song, but it's actually a really sad song about the end of a relationship.
Hmm. Yo, while you're telling me this, and I'm not, excuse me, saying what, let me start over. While you're talking about that story, I wonder, is there an Elijah Blake reference of Climax somewhere?
There is actually before to prevent leaks because leaks were huge around that time. It was my version and my demo that was being sent back and forth to the producer, and as they were making tweaks, and you know what I mean, just so Usher's version didn't leak. So actually, I almost forgot I the reference I did, but I was in the studio with Diplo a couple years ago, and he was like, "You want to hear your reference?" I was like, "Yeah, let me hear it." He sent it to me, but that's why I'm kind of afraid of like iPhone updates because when you update your phone and you're trying to, so it's in one of my old emails somewhere or somewhere in an iCloud, but and Diplo for sure has it. But yeah, one
Wow.
day I want to do something special. I'm gonna find it when I have time after I finish tour. I'm gonna go into all my old emails. I'm gonna find that demo and hopefully we could do something fun with it and I can put it out just for the fans and people
Yeah.
like yourself who care and want to see just how much it takes and the steps that it takes to craft a song like that.
Wow. Kudos to that.
Thank you.
You've worked with Justin Bieber, Rick Ross, Rihanna,
Yeah.
and more, and
Thank you.
more. Is there any artist or session that you've worked as a songwriter that you were like, am I really in this room?
Almost all of them, but you know, one that really hits me, I was too young to appreciate it at the time was Nas.
Hmm.
I just I didn't understand it then just because I was being burnt out in a way. When I first moved to LA, they were putting me in like 6 sessions a day.
Mm-hmm.
And Nas was actually the session or the artist that got me to LA. They were doing Nas sessions, and I made the cut. Around it, it was really competitive around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they would put your name in a hat, and then maybe I'm guessing Nas or whoever his team is would be like, okay, well, we'll pay for travel for this person, James Fauntleroy, Clark Kelly, and my name was Red Styles at the time. And this is a story actually. You spoke something into existence. This is a story I've never told. No one knows this story, but I didn't know how to drive. I had just got signed from the stuff I've done with Trey Songz, and Beyonce merely uttered my name in a meeting, and then I got the deal of a lifetime from Sony. But I didn't know how to drive, so my first car was a Porsche Panamera that I was learning how to drive in, but I didn't master it. But I wasn't going to miss this opportunity to come to LA and work with Nas. So I caught a flight, and usually they would have a car service for me. Anytime Sony flew me out, they would have a car service for you, and they would pick you up, take you to the hotel, take you to the session. Well, not to the session, and Uber wasn't really around this time. So I landed in LA, and I'm hitting Sony like, I landed. Is the car going to take me to the hotel, and I'll figure it out from there? They was like, no, Nas's team, they don't do it that way. But they'll take care of a rental for you the whole time. So I'm like, what? So I don't think they understood how young I was because again,
Right.
I'm like 17, 18. Yeah, I think I might have been just 17.
Right.
So I go to the car rental place because I had like the learner's permit and enough to got the car rental because it was in my name. And I'm driving through LA where no one knows how to drive, learning how to drive. And people like, fuck away. Are you crazy? Where'd you learn how to drive from? McDonald's? And like, you know, with but I just was like, okay, how much extra is it to get the little navigation thing around that time? And I had it. So it was telling me where to go, but barely made it there within an inch of my life and not causing like the craziest collision. Got to the studio and the engineer, I made a deal with him. So when everybody left and I got to meet Nas and that was like a complete mind fuck. But when it was over, he was mixing the song. Usually the engineer is the last to go because he has to bounce out the session, close out the studio. I said, hey man, he was like, yeah, man, yeah, I'm texting my girlfriend to come pick me up. And I was like, okay, so you don't drive. He was like, nah. I was like, but you know how to drive. He was like, yes. I said, okay, so I'm here for a week working with Nas. You're the engineer for the session. They gave me this rental. It's a Jaguar XF. You can have the rental. All I ask for and do whatever you need to do. Take your girlfriend for a ride or whatever. I just need your help getting to and from the studio. That's it. So that was like a deal I worked out with the engineer. Yeah.
Very clever. Wow.
Yeah.
You talk about you did start off very young
Yeah.
in the music business, and you have a story at 15
Mhm.
you were discovered by the legend Troy Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about that.
So my father told me really early, like, if you do things right, if you do anything well enough, the people that you're trying to attract will come and find you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are the product, you are the talent, you are the gift, they need you to make money. And he was like, the days of like, oh, begging a label to see it in you. He was like, if you show the potential to make an extreme amount of money, they will come find you because they need money. So
Yeah.
my dad started just really honing in my talent and being really strict on me in terms of like my songwriting and building a song out, harmonies. And I started putting my original music up online. That
Mm-hmm.
led to Mike Karen sending out a team of people to come and find me. Aaron Bay Shuck wrote me. He was like, we're trying to find you. Mike Karen wants to sign you. And I guess before he could find me and get a hold of me, Troy was always ahead of the curve in discovering Trey
Yeah.
Songz, Jonte Austin,
Still
um,
is.
so many people. So they was like, hey, would you happen to know this guy? And Troy had already been speaking to me through MySpace.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, yes, I know him. And they was like, we think he's a star. Can you help us? And actually, not only just find him, but since you're already speaking to him, perfect. Trey's in Atlanta working on his album. Let's get him to Atlanta and start develop and do a development deal that can potentially turn into something.
Have you ever had you talk about coming from Florida, you moved to LA, you're moving here.
Yeah.
Were you always just ready to go when you decided this was your path to career?
I knew I've just had this weird thing with purpose
Mm-hmm.
since a young kid. Like my location never had anything to do with I wasn't tied to the location, more so tied to my calling in Christ and my belief in something bigger. So that never bothered me. When they were like, hey, we need you to come to Atlanta, live in a house full of strangers and Trey Songz and Delonte and Bobby and Troy Taylor, I was like, my bags are packed. When do I leave? I just never had an attachment to that type of, just the comfort of home. Like home is where I am with God and my friends, of course. But yeah, I was out of there. And in the moment, like I said, when I came to LA and worked with Nas and saw, and Priscilla Renee, who's now Money Long, in
Yeah.
one room, and then James Fauntleroy in the next room, and like just hitting. And I felt that fire. I was like, okay, this is where I need to be. And I went back home because it was a round trip. Packed my bags, booked my own ticket, lived out of a hotel for 2 weeks, and came to LA. So I've always wherever I'm drawn to for my gift and to expand and fully be realized and my dreams to be fully realized, that's where I'll be.
Amazing, amazing. When I was preparing to talk with you today, I was going through all your projects, right? And I guess my first question is what is the difference making Bijou 22, the preparation and putting it together versus Elijah in 2024?
Well, there's a saying, right? It says, you have your whole life to make your first project, and
Yes.
in 6 months to make the next one, and the ones after that. So Bijou 22, though, it was just a boy that wanted to sing. I had been a songwriter. I started off wanting to sing as a church kid, but because I became more successful as a songwriter first, when I got signed to Def Jam as an artist, it was just like permission to just sing, right? And now I'm not no longer just the background vocals that Chris Brown left on the record, and I'm no longer in the behind the scenes, but I get to sing. So Bijou 22, you're hearing every riff and run, every high note that I could possibly do because I had something to prove. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was like,
Yeah.
I can sing. Y'all didn't think I could sing. Y'all thought I could just write, but I can really sing.
Yes.
So even when I listen to Bijou 22, I'm just like, dang, that boy wanted to sing. He wanted y'all to know that he wasn't just an auto-tune singer. He wasn't just a bibbity bobbity rap singer. He was a singer and from the church. So now I think if you haven't realized 10 projects in that I can sing, for better or for worse, you just ain't never gonna get it. So this project is more about the story. And I
Okay.
think that's why there's a stronger connection to my fans. And the growth in terms of new fans is insane to me. I actually thought I reached a point where, okay, my tribe was my tribe, and I wasn't gonna really. I've been in it so long because I started so young that even though I'm still young, I just kind of felt like, okay, like these are my fans. I'm kind of stuck with them. They're stuck with me. It doesn't really get any. I won't be able to touch anybody older or younger than that demographic. But just the growth this goes. I'm like looking at people commenting on my thing. I'm like, where the hell did you come from? Like
Right.
people following me, and so this project has really changed. This will be the project that changed everything for sure. It already is.
Let me tell you, each time I listen to it, I catch another song. I feel, look, I have a new dance to the
Oh
song
yeah.
each time.
Thank you.
Elijah, you named the 10th album like Elijah, which is a beautiful meaning. Jehovah is my God,
Amen.
meaning. Um, how did you come to that title? And I just want to speak about the preparation and getting Elijah out.
Yeah. I went through a space last year where just a family member of mine came down with something that was terminal. They beat it, but at the time it wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be, and that
Mhm.
was some. I've had loss, fewer losses than most people, but I've experienced loss, and that's been traumatic. But just the potential of experiencing the loss that close to me just kind of really shattered me. Then the betrayal of a relationship on top of that, when that was happening, you kind of invest into relationships in hopes that when you're confronted with that reality, that you'll have somebody to lean on. So then dealing with that betrayal and just really feeling alone last year, to where I'm like, I don't really have nothing to prove and I don't have anything to lose, which
Mhm.
makes someone like myself very dangerous in a good way, right? You can either go out there and just do something that you'll regret for the rest of your life, or you can say, I have one last fight in me to just make the best body of work and put this into the most transparent healing project for somebody and a timestamp in some way, shape, or form that you can look back to and be like, I never want to be back in that space again. I'll never allow myself to be back in that space again. But I also pat on my back, I made it out.
Right, right.
And so I said, if I was able to do it my way, no one whispering in my ear. That's why it's self-titled. It's my first time really producing on this project. It's my
Mhm.
first time really driving it. And I have people on my team, but my team actually let me lead this go around. So that's why I felt like it was more than appropriate for this to be the self-title. Because as I've been around for a while, I feel like a brand new artist right now.
Yo, you came out the gate with Ghostbuster. I was like, wait a minute. What did he just say? Yo, that is a true like mind thing.
Thank
Like,
you.
whoa.
Thank you.
Where were you in that at that space, time and space when you wrote that?
Uh, Again, so the betrayal I dealt with, I was also dealing with not having any more to give, not even a second chance. And you go through when you go through a breakup, y'all dropping it off each other's stuff, and
Mhm.
the question in the air is like, if I fixed everything, would you do it again? And just knowing that the answer is no, it's a very painful reality, and I like I damn near, I'm gonna be honest with you. I cried the whole way to the session. And damn near cried while recording that song. And I don't cry. Like it's
Yeah,
almost to the point where my family used to think something was wrong with me because they're like, bro, do you have any emotion? I don't cry at funerals, I don't cry. But it just was not even specific to the relationship, but just everything
yeah.
going on. It was just kind of like I had never really been tested in that way. So Ghostbusters, that's one I wouldn't say it's one take, but
Yeah,
that last bridge on down,
yeah.
majority is that is just like when the producer goes, "Hey, you want to do an ad lib pass?" and it's just like, "Okay, let me try," and I just let it all go. That's what you're hearing at the end of that. It was that the one take where I didn't overthink it and say, "Okay, just let me go," because I would never go for that note. Any other that fool like
Yeah.
and holding it that long, then going up again and then coming out in the riff. I wouldn't. I try to be safer now. I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that.
Yo, you left it all on the studio floor with that song.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about, I love the writing. Sugar, water, and lime.
Yeah.
Where, okay.
Yeah.
You have a beautiful mind. I
Thank you.
love the title, and I just love like you're such a lyricist.
Thank you.
Please share how that came about.
It just also again realizing, 90% of healing from a past traumatic incident is reminding yourself never to go back to that space
Mhm.
because it's easier. It's comfortable. It's what you know. It's easier. So for me, I someone said write it down, write out the pros and write out the cons. So then therefore, even when you're tempted from loneliness or just again comfort, you can look at it and be like, I can't, no matter what instinctually my body wants to do or repetitious wise or whatever, I can't go back. And I'm like looking at it, and the lists were of sugars and limes. These are the good things. These are what I was calling me back, but these are why I can never go back. And this is why it will never be lemonade. Because if when life gives you lemons, you can make lemonade. But if you don't have lemons, it'll never be that. It'll never come into completion.
Damn, you are a cold piece of work,
Thank
Elijah.
you.
Oh my goodness. Which
Thank you.
leads me, you talking about these songs makes me, I'm shifting even what I wanted to ask you.
Mm.
Best friend.
Yeah. Best friend I wrote while I was still in the relationship. And it's the realization that we don't have fun anymore. We wake up and it's just like two ships passing in the night. So I wrote that while I was still in it. And it just was kind of like, damn, I miss my friend. Like, we're not even that no more. Like, we argue about cereal. It's just to the point where the resentment is so high that you just like, there's a disagreement with everything. And that's not what I fell in love with.
Uh, Call me when you get there.
Call Me When You Get There. I wrote with like my little brother, who's an amazing producer, and I actually co-wrote with him as well. And it just talks about, I'm a Gemini, and I never thought I could possess a love so deep that even if it's not me, I'm happy for you. That don't work. It's just like both y'all can get hit by a bus if it ain't me. But I wanted to tap into and tell a story about a love so deep where it's like, even if you're leaving me for someone else, if you're leaving me for the other man, it's my responsibility. I promise you I would love and protect you and hold you. And before I release you from that protection, let me know you made it safely.
Oh gosh.
I just got chills talking about that, but I don't know. I hope to one day experience that. And I actually think I will because I've become so much more mature in how I view love and how I experience people. So but that's what that song is about. I'm just kind of like I've seen people love in that way, and I'm just inspired by it because there's an honesty and just a responsibility when you take on loving somebody, how you handle them.
It's so beautiful. I have to say this, and it might sound corny or something, but Geminis are crazy. And you know it's two of y'all. So it's
It's
probably
sick
what
to
E
me. It's sick
Blizzy.
to me. It's E Blizzy, it's Red, it's Elijah. It's just, yeah, because Red will burn the whole house down on the way out. I keep him far, far away.
Look, you said Gemini. I'm a Pisces, and I said Gemini. Oh,
Oh my
okay.
God. But
It
y'all
all makes
Pisces,
sense.
y'all don't run from conflict. Y'all gonna bring it. Oh,
Why?
y'all gonna bring it to the table.
Why? Why? You know, when I was going through just all your albums, right?
Mhm.
I put, I wrote down, first thing that came up my head was time.
Mm.
He's put a lot of time in it. And
Mhm.
so I got a few time things I want to ask you about
Ooh, this
regarding
is gonna
time.
be fun.
So your connection with time and space, what does time mean to you?
Time to me is the most valuable thing that God has blessed us to experience, right? Because there are billionaires that can't afford time. If someone tells you, if I could be worth $100 billion right now, and if I have a terminal illness or if it's my time to go, I cannot buy more time. So how
Yeah.
you spend it, who you give it to, should be the most thought out process, and that's the greatest investment. Time is when you put in your 10,000 hours, when you who you choose to spend your alone time with, or who you spend your vacation time. So my relationship with time has become very, very well thought out, and more curated, as opposed to in the past. Of course, you do that when you're super young, you just waste time. And for
Yes.
me, it's just something that's too valuable. I don't give negative things my time. I don't give certain things that luxury anymore.
Wow. How are you feeling in current time?
I feel amazing. I have done the work, I believe, or enough work for now. I think that I'm ready to receive all the beauty that I'm getting in my personal life, in my personal love life, in my career. I wasn't ready before. You know, there was a lot of resentment because I felt like I did everything right. I felt like I worked on my singing, I worked on my songwriting, I worked on my harmonies and my arrangements, and I perfected so many things. And I watched people who just didn't care and took it for granted or took advantage benefit more than me financially and other things in ways that I would have loved to be able to take care of my family and myself in that same way. Um, but they didn't last. It came fast, but it went even faster.
Mm.
Whereas, even though I've seen a lot of highs, I've seen a lot of lows, I'm still here, and that's more than I can say for a lot of people that started when I started, and that's a blessing. And for now, people to call this my magnum opus is just like I was building into this moment the entire time.
Wow. Your favorite moment in time
My favorite moment in time. Hmm.
to date.
Hmm. Um.
That's a good thing.
That's a really good one. I have to. Okay, can it be more than one?
Yes.
I do remember again me feeling like having more success as a songwriter and trying to tell people, well, no, I started off as an artist. I just wanted to go where the money was at. Even though the situation didn't work out how I wanted it to, I do remember when Def Jam said yes and they wanted to sign me, and it somewhat validated me as an artist in that
Yeah.
way. It when they said yes, it was like, oh my God, finally somebody is they don't just see the songwriter. Um, that was a pivotal moment. I just remember calling my mom and my business manager, Matt, who was like, we've all been kind of like, and my dad. I just remember when I got the email on the plane that they put the offer in. And I was able to call my family. And when I told my mom this, because for her, it was real too. It wasn't real prior because she's like, why don't you go to college? Why don't you become a doctor? Like, this is a weird dream that you're chasing. So once I got that record deal, it just kind of like said, okay, I'm really in the game, in the fight
Right.
now. Whatever happens after that is out of my control. But I'm a legitimate artist. But recently, Pandora granted me the position to have a billboard in Times Square. And so that was pretty magical because I remember walking by that specific billboard and seeing Taylor Swift and seeing Billie Eilish and saying one day, as a Black artist, I would love to see another R&B artist in that space, in a space
Mm.
that you don't often see Black artists in. And when that happened for me, it was just kind of like, whoa. So that's the most recent.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. I wanted to speak about um as far as your album. What was the last song that you completed for the project?
The last song, dang, yesterday I had remembered what the last song was. I feel like the last song I did on the album, you know what, might have been Sugar Water and Lime.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yes, Sugar Water and Lime was the album was done. And I was like, I just remember having a conversation with God, like, okay, did I get it all out? Because Elijah, for it to be like a self-titled project,
Hmm.
it has to say everything or finish every conversation I started up to this point. Um, and I just remember having a list that in my touching on everything. I wanted to be as transparent, as brutally honest in my process where I'm at as
Yes.
possible. And Ghostbusters did it. Company was like the sexy R&B record that fans that were familiar with me, I could not have that on the
Yes.
project. But Sugar Water and Lime and that analogy and that tug of war that happens because I am a lover and I often deal with that tug of war, like the sugars, the limes, and the goods, the bads, the pros, the cons, and should I be here, should I not, when do I leave? And I had that concept in my phone. And the album again was done. We did the record deal. We were going into mixing and mastering. And I was in Atlanta, and this MD that I used, John, but he's also an amazing producer, but he was MDing something for me. And we were working on, and then we were like, let's do some stuff for Rihanna, because she was working at the time. So we started creating some stuff for Rihanna, and then we did some stuff. All right, that's nice. I was like, hey, let's try this pocket. And I'm like singing the tempo, and they're like following me, and I'm like telling them like, dun, dun. I wanted the dramatics, the stops, and I was like, let's all be in sync. And we recorded. I actually have the video on my phone, and then so I did that, and I hit my A&R guy who had signed me at Monarch. I was like, can you find me a studio in Atlanta? Like, he was like, when? I was like, tonight, right now. And he was like, what? He's like, all right, give me a second. And he really signs a lot of rappers. I think he might have signed one or two singers, but he has a lot of rappers. So especially we're in Atlanta. So he's like, all right, come by the studio. I go into this studio, and it literally looks like somebody dropped a smoke bomb. I can't breathe. I can't sing. I'm like, like the whole time, it's just in the hood. And I'm like, oh no, I can't record nothing here, bro. I'm choking. And he was like, no. And so the studio manager's like, give us a vacuum or whatever. We'll clear it out. They put like an air filter thing. And they're like, okay, can you use it now? Give us the least smoked out room. So then we go into this room. It's just me. And then John lost his voice that day. So he's like typing. The devil was really busy. He's like typing what he wants to say. Like, cause I'm like, is that a good take? Did you believe that? When he's like typing, because he has no voice, but he's like, we can't cancel this session. So I'm like, too much is going wrong. I must be about to do the song of my career, like right now. So once they clean out the studio, I'm like, I still smell the smoke, but let's try it. And I'm like coughing between every take, but we got it done. I thought I was just gonna do the demo, but the beautiful disaster and the organized chaos that was ended up being the final vocal. And the producer called, my A&R called me. He was like, I know you're supposed to you wanted to do this for the deluxe. He's like, are you shopping that record to Rihanna or somebody? I was like, no, it just came out too personal. He's like, good. He's like, that's my favorite record for you, and that's the single. So,
wow,
yeah.
Like it's getting bigger and bigger. Like every time you like breaking down, that's one of those songs that you can really like go line per line. Let's break this down. Why did you think that? Wow.
Yeah. And I had that concept in my phone. I was so scared to, because again, I told you when I was writing out my pros and cons, I was like, this feels like sugars, limes, and I just always think about metaphors and analogies, and people get annoyed with me. I do this in my everyday life too. And they're like, oh my God, here goes another metaphor. Like, you want to be the Riddler so bad, or like the Joker so bad. But then I was afraid of that concept, because I'm like, if I don't do it right, it's a waste of a beautiful concept. So even when I was writing, I'm like, did I tie this part in? Did I complete this thought? Or it was such an intimidating concept and title to write. I just didn't want to mess it up. I feel like God gave me that nugget. I was like, oh my God, I got to do this right and make sure everything with the lemons and wanted raisins. Life gave you grapes, and hoping the seeds were going to grow, but the seed, and you were hoping the seeds were going to come out yellow, but then they came out green. And I was just going through and fine tuning that concept, because I was so afraid of just like wasting it. And it's such a complex concept and a complex perspective and a complex story that if you miss one part or one component, it will be lost on everybody. They'd be like, what? Like, what are you trying to say? Like, you trying to be just deep for no reason. So I was super intimidated by that concept being in my phone. So I'm glad it came out cool.
A beautiful mind, Elijah. When I look, I have a question too. And the more I talk to you, I go, it makes sense that most of his albums, it's just him. Who else do I want to hear but Elijah Blake on an Elijah Blake album? Out of your 10, what I noticed, you only have 3 albums that you've had features. Making this Elijah album, was there ever any thought of adding anyone on here?
I love collaborations, and if I could have it, I'd have features on every song. But I also am that person that I get so annoyed when there's a rapper that jumps on a song, and I'm like, did you listen to the song that you're collaborating? Did you like read the lyrics? Did they fully explain? Because like, how often have we heard a rapper get on and just start talking about his jewelry and his chains? And it's like, you just ruined this beautiful love song
Right.
or you just ruined this heartbreak record. So I, if you've noticed in my career, I've only done collaborations with like super lyricists like J. Cole and
Yeah.
Ross, and I
Yeah.
just naturally gravitate towards storytellers alike in that way, or I just rather not, or D Smoke, who I think is an
Yes.
amazing storyteller. But yeah, throughout my career, Common, if you look at the features I've done, they
Mm-hmm.
are there is no way that they could have gotten on a song and ruined it. Like I remember when Common was doing the feature for XOX, like he was like, I want you in the studio because if I ask you certain questions, like what do you mean when you say this line? Do you like me piggybacking off of this point? Do you understand? And this double triple entendre? And even J. Cole, when I reached out to him for a feature, well, he actually reached out to me. He was like, "Yo, I believe in you. I heard you're in New York. Come out of studio." And I came out of studio. I'm thinking because Climax is going crazy around that time, so I'm like, "Oh, are we about to do something for Usher?" He was like, "No, I want to work on your project." I was like, "What?" So
Wow.
Cole actually like initiated that, and even then, every line he was like, "What you think about that?" Like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, so that just showed how much he believed in me as an artist, and I feel that pressure. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I just didn't want to become another like, oh my God, he could have made it. He had all the potential because throughout my career, there's been a lot of people like Rick Ross didn't charge me for my feature. So there's a lot of people that I want to look in the face at the end of my career and for them to say, well done. I don't want to waste
Yes.
a Cole feature. I don't want to waste the Ross looks that he's given me. And I want, it might not have happened right when they did it, but I don't think that they did it for that reason. I think that Cole believed in me in the long run, and that's why he did it. So when next time I see him, I don't want my head to be down like, damn, did it ever happen? Is it gonna happen? Now, like, and I remember the last time I saw Ross, he was like, I see you. He's like, I see you, youngin. Let's go. You know what I mean? So that makes me feel good because like you're still in the fight, and it's exactly what I thought. Like the world is they have no choice but to catch on.
How is it in the world now, just meeting people and on the road touring?
I touring has changed so much. I prefer intimate settings. It
Yes.
blows my mind when I watch these artists do this like stadium pissing contests or arenas, and I'm just like, people are not coming out of their house. People are still scared of like crowds in that way. So
Yeah.
touring will never be the same. But people's egos, for whatever reason, are still like, I want to do a stadium, and then they're canceling it 3 weeks later. I've
Yes.
always preferred, again, maybe that's just the church boy in me. I want to look in your face and see, maybe you had that lyric wrong. And I watch my fans like when I'm performing live, like as I'm singing the song, or if I do a breakdown and I'm like heavily driving that point home, they're like, oh, that's what you were saying. Oh, okay, that's what you meant with it. And I watch them realize it live in an intimate setting or seeing a different interpretation. And I get to be more churchy live. I get to be more sporadic in my in how I emote things. So
Right.
I just prefer the intimate setting, and I think that's what I'm going to end up doing again this go round.
Right. I have to talk about your hair. We have watched you evolve because I think one of your albums you have the sides tapered like a high top fade or
Yeah,
something. And
yeah.
look at all these dresses now. Where did you start that? Because it's beautiful.
Thank
Look,
you.
we trying
I've
to
just
see the
always been a fan.
products.
If you look at the people I love,
Yeah.
they've always just expressed themselves through their hair. And as long as I have hair, I'm gonna use it to help me tell my story. And in Jesus' name, I hope it's for the rest of my life. But I just love when Prince was feeling a little
Yes.
spicy, it'd be bone straight. When he was feeling, more machismo, he cut it off, and it'd be like
Yeah.
the, or when he was feeling more, whatever,
He started that.
dynamite, he did the fro. And I
Yeah.
just love people like him, Jimi Hendrix, who have expressed themselves. I think as an artist, it's your responsibility to use every fiber in yourself to express how you feel. That's my relationship with fashion. That's my relationship with any part of me. Just using every part that I have available to myself to express to my fans and people who are just looking for somebody to make them not feel as weird and to be like, hey, I
Yeah.
can relate to him in that way. That's why the tattoos and
Yeah.
I really am deep in this thing of expression.
How is it as an artist now? Just when we talk about fashion and just having to show up for so much, how have you gotten used to it as far as the photo shoots, the PR, the this, I gotta do this.
Yeah.
How is it now for you? Because you've been doing it for a long
Yeah,
time.
it's fun. It's to me, these things are fun. I
Mhm.
watch certain artists be like, oh, they'll come up to me and ask me for a picture, and I'm just kind of like, you didn't read the handbook of like what you signed up for, and
Yeah,
that's not a knock because
yeah,
I do think that it can sometimes it can be a little intrusive. It can be a little like, hey, but I think you owe it to these people who have helped you be in a position to have the luxuries in life, and they're spending their hard-earned money. They don't make it as much or as fast to give back to them. So photo shoots, interviews, especially like I said, as a Black artist, we don't have many platforms to say
yeah.
we have music out and to highlight our thing. So I get excited when it's people like yourself and who just extend their platform and for me to get my music out and my stories out and for other people to establish or strengthen a connection with me and my stories.
I love that. My final question, your career from the start of it, even when you were getting those poetry awards till
Mm-hmm.
now, what keys of life have you learned and are implementing now for the evolution of Elijah Blake?
This is gonna sound a little arrogant, but believe in yourself enough. Everybody says believe in yourself, but I have a fine print.
Mhm.
Believe in yourself enough to fall on your own sword. I think my biggest regrets have been when I've done it on somebody else's terms and it still didn't work out for me because if I didn't own it or because I couldn't own it, it wasn't my idea. Um, it wasn't instinctual for me. It didn't come off authentic. But just for the out of necessity to play the game. And the industry has a way of like anytime an artist stands up for their views and their beliefs or their values, or you're stubborn, and there's like this already like connotation of just like, oh, you're just difficult to work with. And in times where just that negative connotation became so unbearable, or like you do start to question, like, am I just difficult? Am I just like I don't want to be a contrarian? So in times where I've been like, all right, like what you want me to do, I'll do it. It's I've always bombed. It's just
Yeah.
never worked. It didn't connect, and it's just in vain. It just appeased somebody else's ego. It just validated someone else's view because no one has the answers. But in the space that I'm in now, I work with people who trust me enough that if it doesn't work out, at least I fell on my own sword as opposed to somebody else's sword. At least I was true in my beliefs. At least that idea that I wanted to execute kept me up at night, and I can say I went for it on my own terms. So that's where I'm at now. Don't be afraid to fall on your own sword.
I love that. I love that. Um, I am so happy that we had this conversation.
Me too.
I've
Thank you.
really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I'm looking forward to seeing you out on the road on tour
Thank you.
and just
Please
seeing.
come. I'll make sure you and the family good. I can't
Yes,
wait to see you and sing to you.
absolutely.
Um, I uh I can maybe count on one hand, maybe three fingers, how many any interviews I've done or conversations like this that I've had where I can tell that the interviewer or the person questioning me really loved my music and really studied me and really grew with me. This
Thank
is
you.
one of them. So this just really made my day. Thank you so much for just like following along my journey.
Thank you.
Because there were a lot of lows and it wasn't popular to like Elijah Blake and to listen to Elijah Blake. So I know that you kind of might have gone to bat for me a couple times in the friendship circle when the ox cord was passed to you. So thank you so much.
May I tell you that you knew that great things take time,
Yes.
and I appreciate this. Many more. I look forward to you coming back and sharing all the great news about this new project, Elijah, that you have to keep on listening over and over again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. My guest today is Sir Elijah Blake.
Thank you,
Please
Kelly. I'll
support
come back as
and
long as
follow
you have me.
him. Thank you so much. It's the Hybrid Soul with Kelly Kinkaid, your destination for music and culture discovery.
And this is
Later.
Elijah Blake on the Hybrid Soul signing out. Thank y'all so much. Much love, everybody.